The radical left's agendas are challenging American values, but conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's official, ladies and gentlemen. My new book, On Power, is out today. And those of you who are purchasing it, I want to thank you on Amazon.com and any retail bookstore or any of the warehouse stores that currently have it. I want to thank you. Barnes & Noble has a lot of them, and Walmart, and Costco has some, and BJ's and Sam's and Target, and on and on and on. And, of course, the surest way is Amazon.com, your local bookstore. But I want to thank you all. It has received a fantastic reception. I want to thank all of the radio hosts and TV hosts who have thus far interviewed me and have read the book and have been asking really good questions, and I think we've had excellent discussions. This is what broadcasting is all about. It's not just paint by the numbers. It's not just go to websites and pick up the five top subjects. It's not just guests and guests and more guests. It's this, talking about things that are substantive and matter. There's really few other formats in which it can be done. Truly. We can do it on Fox, and we can do it on conservative talk radio, and we can do it in some other, methods and modes and platforms, but few others. And this is the advantage of freedom of speech. This is the advantage of these industries. And so we're doing exactly what we should be doing. Talking about smart things, substantive things, I hope entertaining and interesting things. And it shouldn't be boring. It shouldn't be monotonous. I mean, these are really new ideas and new applications of old ideas as far as I'm concerned. So, On Power is the book. I hope you'll acquire yours tonight or tomorrow or soon. And we can jump in. Again, I want to thank all the hosts from today and many tomorrow and in the next several weeks. All the broadcast companies, Fox, Westwood One has been fantastic, Blaze, all the rest. I want to thank you all. We'll get into that a little bit. We have 2 big book signings coming up, too, that I want to mention. But before I do, I want to go over a few facts with you, and it'll soon become apparent why I am. Ever hear the bombing of Dresden, America? The bombing of Dresden during World War II, the Allied bombing. 2.5 days of bombing, February 13th to the 15th, 1945. The desire was just to bring an end to the Second World War, and this bombing was a terror bombing campaign against Germany that was specifically focused on civilians. Civilians. Dresden had no real military threat or application. It was a mid-sized city. And the goal of the British and the United States was to bomb it to smithereens. To smithereens. And throughout the war, Churchill had called for increased British air raids against the population centers of Germany in order to swamp German authorities and services. And as the Allied forces closed in on the Third Reich in 1945, these targets became more feasible, as Britannica points out. Before World War II, Dresden was called the Florence of Germany, considered one of the world's most beautiful cities because of its architecture and its art treasures. Having never been previously attacked in any war, the city offered increased value for terror bombing against an inexperienced population. On the night of February 13, the British Bomber Command hit Dresden with an 800-bomber air raid. 800 bombers. They dropped 2,700 tons of bombs, including large numbers of incendiaries. And they were aided by weather conditions. A firestorm developed, incinerating tens of thousands of people. The U.S. 8th Air Force followed the next day with another 400 tons of bombs, carried out yet another raid by 210 bombers. At this point, Germany was basically in the air, defenseless. The estimate is as high as 250,000 people died, as low as 35,000 in 2 days, given the influx of undocumented refugees that had fled Dresden. Almost all of the victims were women, children, and elderly, since all the men had been drafted into the war. Dresden, a historic benchmark that demonstrated the power of strategic bombing of civilian centers. Critics say the military value of the bombing did not justify Dresden's near obliteration. The city could have been spared like Rome and Paris and Kyoto. And given the massive number of civilian casualties and the relatively few strategic targets, some even called the bombing of Dresden a war crime. Though both the British and American militaries defended the bombing as necessary. Any idea why I'm mentioning this, Mr. Producer? I have to listen to the weasel, quisling Prime Minister of the UK go on and on about Israel starving Palestinians in Gaza when we all know that Hamas is behind it. I have to hear these phony influencers. You know what an influencer is? It is a self-anointed narcissist, self-righteous. They influence nobody. They babble. They talk to each other. They interview each other. I have to listen to these British podcasters and broadcasters condemn Israel? Really? And this Prime Minister of Britain? Really? And he threatens he's going to recognize a Palestinian state like his French quisling weasel friend Macron? An individual who I don't know posted, and I retweeted it. This would be like awarding the Third Reich a new state after the Holocaust. And that's what France and the British and the Spanish and the rest of them, the Norwegians, that's what they're doing. And to hear podcasters and others in our own country to side with this insanity will never be forgotten. That will be their legacy. No matter what else they say, from today to tomorrow, no matter what else they say in the future, they will be remembered as the voices that opposed preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons. They will be remembered as the voices that turned on our ally, where the anti-Semitic capitals throughout Europe and beyond are turning on the state of Israel. They will be remembered for their hypocrisy, where they claim America first when they don't even know what it means. What they're demanding that Israel do is surrender. That's the only thing Israel can do to accommodate their demands, as they sit on their fat asses, collect their clicks and their hits and their eyeballs and their millions, going on and on about what somebody else should do. We would never do what they're demanding that Israel do. Never. And we didn't. We bombed Dresden into obliteration. And not just Dresden. We dropped 2 atomic bombs. And when you add the number of people who died in Dresden and the number of people who died from the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs, and we were involved in all 3, and rightly so. No apologies. A world war where we were attacked, where it was life and death. Makes Gaza look rather small, even though it's not, doesn't it? Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, those are only 3. Those are only 3. There were others. There's no talk in our country about feeding the citizenry of the enemy. In fact, it was a military decision that in order to stop these regimes, in order to defeat Imperial Japan, in order to defeat the Third Reich, the population was fair game. And the population, city after city, needed to be destroyed in order to put the pressure on these governments to either surrender or collapse. Almost since the beginning, Israel's been told not to do this and not to do that. Almost since the beginning. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. If they'd been left alone, this would have been over a long time ago, and the hostages would be out. They'd be out. But Israel's being asked to do the impossible. To feed the people of an enemy territory, while those who run the enemy territory are trying to starve their own people. And at the same time, they're being told that they need to enter into a ceasefire. But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom says, but Hamas can't remain in charge. You tell me how all this is to be achieved. You tell me. You tell me how to accomplish that. The moron who runs Britain has destroyed his own country, as have other prime ministers before him, with open borders. Britain has a real problem now with these radical Islamists, one of whom is the mayor of London, but they're the mayor of several cities in Britain. Britain is in decline. Britain's Western standards are being usurped. Free speech is allowed as long as you attack Britain, but you better not question radical Islam. France's President Macron believes he owes his presidency to the radical Islamists. And ask yourself, what has France done? What has Britain done to try and defeat Hamas? What did they do with Iran other than appease Iran? We're perfectly willing for Iran to get nuclear weapons because they weren't willing to do anything about it. Should the United States go the way of Britain? Should the United States go the way of France? Should Israel destroy itself? A Palestinian state, exactly who would run this state? Exactly what would it look like? Exactly what would its boundaries be? Exactly how would you stop it from being another Gaza, but worse? These aren't proposals. These aren't rational policies. Israel is not going to surrender to its own destruction, no matter what the hell anybody says. But these people in our country, these influencers who influence nobody, including President Trump, nobody, they stand with the Islamists. They stand with the quisling Prime Minister of Britain. They stand with the quisling President of France. They stand with the Communist Chinese and Putin. They stand with the United Nations and UNRWA. If they know any history, and most of them are too stupid and illiterate to know anything, but if they know it, they also know they're lying. They're applying a standard to Israel that we would never, ever apply to ourselves, nor should we. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Hitting civilian targets, infrastructure, hitting cities was part of our military strategy to end World War II. And not just ours, Britain's too. And of course, Stalin's. Major target for our bombers throughout the war was Berlin, the capital with the biggest population. In Japan, we heavily bombed Tokyo, 1944 and 45. And the most aggressive raid, March 9, March 10th, 1945. I talked about Dresden. I talked about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but they're not the only ones. So we hit civilian population centers with everything we had. Everything. And we hit their infrastructure, oil, food, electricity, with everything we had. We sure as hell didn't feed them. We sure as hell didn't feed them. And we sure as hell didn't award the Third Reich with its own country. I'll be right back. The ICE protests in Los Angeles were just one example of the hatred many ICE agents are dealing with every day. As they work to enforce our nation's laws and keep our country safe, some have been ambushed, received death threats, and have been berated by the mainstream media. Now, if you support ICE, the Heritage Foundation needs your help today. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN right now. Fill out their survey. Heritage needs as many people as possible to participate. So if you support ICE agents, now's the time to let them know. These brave agents put their lives on the line every single day to protect our nation and to fulfill President Trump's electoral mandate. What is it? To secure the borders and deport illegal aliens who have brazenly broken our laws. Voice your opinion at heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Takes less than 5 minutes. Heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, America's passionately cerebral voice. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
Thank God for the free world, the real free world, including the United States and Israel, that Donald Trump is president of the United States. He's on Air Force One today. And, of course, the media are obsessed with bailing out Hamas. That's the bottom line. Cut 8. Go.
I mean, is there any use at all in pressuring Israel now to come to some sort of longer-term solution? Or at least
you could make the case that you're rewarding people, that, you're rewarding Hamas if you do that. And I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest. We'll let you know where we are, but I am not in that camp.
Mr. President,
because if you do that, you really are rewarding Hamas. And I'm not about to do that.
Now, how clear thinking is that? Look at the West. Look at these quislings. You wonder why Marxism is on the rise? You wonder why Islamism is on the rise? You wonder why these hitherto parliamentary democracies are crumbling? This is why. There are two strong democracies left. We're a republic, constitutional republic. Israel is a parliamentary democracy. Because they have two strong leaders. Two strong leaders. I mean, it's easy to throw in with the crowd. Easy. And the overwhelming evidence that Hamas is starving its own people, the way Mao starved his own people, the way Stalin starved his own people, the way Putin is destroying his own people. This is the nature of these ism regimes. Communism, fascism, authoritarianism. That's what they do. Because the rulers exist for the rulers. Now keep in mind, the political radical Islamists believe that the next life is the better life, that you're dying for the cause. Suicide bombers, as an example. So if you're directing that other Muslims, Palestinians, die for the cause, you're actually undertaking a very holy act. A very holy act. This is what the morons, like the British, this is what the morons, like the phony influencers, podcasters, this is what they don't get, and they're never going to get. They're not serious thinkers. They have no guts. They're not profound in any respect. They don't understand history. They don't understand political radical Islam. They don't understand Marxism. Worst of all, they don't understand Americanism. Here's this Keir Starmer today at a press event about recognizing a Palestinian state. Now, let me ask you something. When Hamas hears that, what do you think Hamas is going to do, Mr. Producer? We all know. They're going to quadruple down on the death of their own people. Because for the people who run Hamas and are Hamas, it's their existence that matters. They're righteous. They're holy. They're serving God. And if more people have to die, then more people have to die. If children have to die, then children have to die. They're stealing the food. They're stealing the medicine. They're killing people who are trying to get to the food. They've killed 10 volunteers associated with the United States and Israel trying to get the food to the people who need it. Israel has given data, provable evidence of the amount of food Israel has moved into Gaza. Tons and tons and tons of it. The only nation ever in the history of war to feed the citizens of that with whom they are warring against when they were attacked. We never did it, nor should we have. The British never did it. The French never did it because they were never on the winning side. But you get the point. It's never been done. We didn't bomb Dresden and feed the people in Dresden. We obliterated them. We didn't attack Berlin and then feed the people in Berlin. We didn't attack Hiroshima and then feed the people in Hiroshima. Nagasaki. Tokyo. Crazy. Israel must do more. Must do more. Tiny country with a small economy, but they must do more. They're still fighting Hamas. They still can't get their hostages out. Their hostages have been brutalized, murdered. They're starving to death. And they have to feed the citizens of the enemy, which they're trying desperately to do, while Hamas, which began the whole thing, is stealing the food, selling the food, threatening the Palestinians, and killing the Palestinians. I would ask this to the podcasters and the narcissistic, phony influencers. How many IDF soldiers died today? How many? They don't have the foggiest idea. How many died yesterday? Fighting this war with Hamas. How many? They have no idea. How many have died altogether? Almost 1,000. Almost 1,000. A 1,000 in Israel. It's like 40,000 in the United States. Have any of these people given a damn about the young people who came out of the restaurants as waiters and waitresses? The young people who came out of their high schools and universities and had to put on the uniform to fight these barbarians? Do you ever hear them talk about them? Ever? Never. Has the Prime Minister of Britain talked about them? No. The President of France? No. Have these phony, fraud podcasters with their stupid little videos, have they talked about them? Not once. Never. Never. Israel has traded, 2,000-3,000 prisoners for hostages, including murdered hostage bodies? We would never do that. They've done that. They've done that. But they have to do more. It'll never be enough. It'll never be enough. Hamas knows how to work the American media and the European media. They know how to work the wire services like AP and Reuters. They know how to work the New York Times and the Washington Post. They know how to work them all. They know how to work the isolationist anti-Semites in our country. They know how to work the Democrats and the self-hating Jews. They do. They have their front groups here like CARE, Students for Justice in Palestine. They're all over the place. Thank you, Democrats, for your open borders. They're all over the place. And with this blood libel constantly, incessantly being used, this explains the wild expansion of anti-Semitism. As I've said, as I've written in American Marxism, now Israel is the oppressor, even though it's attacked, even though they want to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth, even though they talk about the river to the sea, even though they're trying to get nuclear weapons to blow them off the face of the earth, even though they say that, even though they are attacked. They are attacked by Hezbollah. They are attacked by the Houthis. They are attacked by Hamas with the backing of Iran. But the pressure's on Israel. I'm not even going to play this PM Keir Starmer, who always talks like he's burping. You know, there's very eloquent people who speak the English language in Britain. It's almost melodious, isn't it? But then there are the crude ones who sound like they're burping all the time, and that would be this guy Starmer, who's hated in his own country. Who's hated in his own country. So the UN is organizing to demand a two-state solution. Is that okay? And that Israel must do more. But whatever it does, it must do more, get out the hostages, prevent Hamas from running Gaza, doing all of it while it basically agrees to a ceasefire. You folks realize that Stephen Witkoff, I've been no fan of his, has tried to get a ceasefire? That the Qataris, a terrorist state that has bought off more politicians in America than I care to count, more businesses, more lawyers and lobbyists, more talk show hosts, that they can't supposedly get their client terrorists to agree? So that the United States walked away and Israel had to walk away, and they didn't want to walk away. They want their hostages out. But as I said weeks ago, what is it that's holding Hamas back? If the Israeli hostages get out, then Hamas has no leverage. They were never going to give the hostages, all of them, back. The president says this now too. But it's Israel's fault. It's Israel's fault. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Tomorrow I will be on WJNO, West Palm Beach, with our buddy Brian Mudd. I'll be on Fox News Radio with my buddy Brian Kilmeade. We will be on the Fox News Channel, America's Newsroom, with Hemmer and Perino at 10:30 on Fox. We'll be on WBAP in Dallas. We'll be on KTTH in Seattle. I want to thank all of our friends. We are now in Barnes & Noble. We're in Books A Million, Sam's Club, Costco. We're in Target. We are in Walmart and, of course, Amazon.com. And I encourage you to grab a copy as soon as you can. I want to talk about it more at length. You know, Sean Hannity has said everybody's interviewed me has made the point. We had Larry O'Connor today. He made the point. We had just great folks. And they all were making the point that this book is quite different. This book is remarkable in many respects. On the one hand, it's a lasting explanation, a deep explanation, philosophical and historical, about this issue of power that people don't discuss enough, and certainly don't discuss it in the right application. And yet at the same time, as Sean says, it's ripped from the headlines. There's a reason for this. Liberty's ripped from the headlines, tyranny's ripped from the headlines, but this is deeper than that. The struggle that goes on in humanity, especially in culture and government, is a struggle over power. That's what it is. It's not even a struggle over liberty and rights. It's a struggle over power that determines whether you have liberty and rights. And that's what the Revolutionary War was fought for. And that's what your Constitution is all about. And that's the battle taking place in New York with Mondani, taking place in Minneapolis, taking place throughout the country, throughout the world. What makes us different, this country different? We are different. This country is better. Thanks to the nature in which it was founded, we were a blank slate, as John Locke said. We didn't have a history of feudalism. We didn't have a history of any of these isms. America was a blank slate. The continent was a blank slate. And so the Marxists in our academia, the Marxists in the Democrat Party, they hate it. They hate it. The political Islamists, they hate it. They hate it. They hate your liberty. They hate your individuality. They hate your free will. They hate what you accomplish when it comes to merit and success, which is why they attack it. They try and control how we speak of each other. It's always through the eyes of racism and wokeism and someism. They don't want a united America. They want a disunited America. They import individuals into the country who are not assimilating into our country. They destroy our educational system, which has as its main feature the assimilation of people into the country to build support for our founding and the morals in this country. Everything they touch turns to crap. Why? Because they're trying to destroy the society. That's the fundamental transformation, not of government, but of society. And what does that mean? That's the fundamental transformation of you into free-thinking, able-bodied, vigorous individuals, into obedient people, into people who are on the take and on the dole, where you serve essentially at the direction of your masters, the ruling class. That's the battle. The Democrat Party's all in with Marxism, and it's opened its doors to Islamism. That's why I wrote the book American Marxism. That's what they are. That's who they are. Everything they propose is intended to steal your free will. Steal the fact that you're the sovereign, not them. This is why they want to control the grocery stores, the housing market, property. This is why they want to eliminate successful people. It's not just billionaires. It's why they hate merit. This is why they accuse merit of being racism. You're going to learn about this and a ton more in this book on power. Why these things are happening, what we can do to push back, because we have to. The question is whether the tremendous presidency of Donald Trump is a respite or is a new trajectory. My fear is it's a respite. But it will be a respite if we don't organize our arguments and go on the offensive, because all of this is a battle of ideas. That's what it is. It's a battle of ideas. Either we'll win the battle or we'll lose the battle. And running around and just saying liberty and free markets isn't going to be enough. That's the point of the book on power. All right, we've got tons more, and I shall return. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, we covered the killer, came out of Las Vegas, who murdered the police officer and 3 beautiful civilians. And now we know he was heading for the NFL headquarters, even though he never played for the NFL. He had mental issues. We know this much. And there's been a lot of talk, a lot of speculation about what could have been done, what should have been done. But you know what, folks? Sometimes it's hard to prepare for every possible contingency. It just is. That building seemed a bit impenetrable, right? You needed passes to get on the elevator and this, that, and the other. But sometimes these things are just unstoppable. Usual gun control people are out there. Of course, they weren't out there the other day when a guy pulled his gun and stopped other people being stabbed or potentially murdered with a knife. But it's time to ignore those people. They're meaningless. They mean nothing. They mean nothing. I mean, people have used bombs, they've used fertilizer, they've used all kinds of stuff. Remember that attack on the Jews who were protesting the holding of the hostages and the 85-year-old woman died? When he basically turned gas canisters into flamethrowers, he didn't have a gun. But I'm sick of that debate. I truly am. I'm sick and tired of it, because it won't save a single life. When you have maniacs who want to do things that maniacs do. If you want to kill somebody, you're not sitting there worried about the gun laws. There's over 300 million guns in our country. The same people who say they want gun laws have supported open borders. Where do they think all these illegal guns come from? Many of them manufactured in communist China and other communist regimes. They pour over our border. Open borders. And what's amazing is I'm the only one that ever mentions this. Ever. So that was horrendous what happened. Horrendous. I want to go into our survivability as a people, as a republic. And I want to continue to keep hitting on this, because I think that's the import of this platform. To provide information, perhaps edification, that you wouldn't get in high school or college or anywhere else. Things move fast. People like shiny objects, particularly those who have microphones, and it's unfortunate. So let's start here, because it's very important. The basis for America's founding and the ideology of the American Marxists are utterly incompatible. Indeed, this is at the heart of the competition for governing power, or more accurately, the power struggle that exists today and has for 100 years or more. That is, two opposite and irreconcilable worldviews about the individual and humanity itself competing for power. There is no liberty without rights, and rights precede government. That's the point of your declaration. However, the societal effectuation and earthly manifestation of those rights are determined by power, negative or positive power. Out of societies, nations are established, some imposed, some with the consent of the people, some more spontaneous than others, some more gradual than others, some civil, some primitive, you name it. Not all societies establish governments, but all societies establish a hierarchy in one form or another, and in one way or another. In the civil society, the purpose is to secure and protect both the unalienable rights of each individual and those of the community of individuals who voluntarily come together for that purpose. It's John Locke. Just laws are adopted by the consent of the people, meaning a majority of the society's members, but the majority is to represent the best interests of the entire society. Although the civil society is distinct from government, the government is to reflect the purposes and character of the civil society. And by the way, this is why the Marxists and the Islamists attack the civil society, the culture. That is, the foundations that undergird the government. The civil society and the character of the government is to safeguard it, and again, the unalienable rights of the individual and society. And there's more. Let's see here. Sovereignty is in the individual and the people, not the government. Sovereignty is in the individual and the people, not the government. That's the way it's supposed to work. No government is legitimate, but for the consent of the people. None. Therefore, representative government is imperative. It checks the rulers and serves the people through elections. Limited government is the only kind of government that can possibly reflect and respond to the will of the people. Massive bureaucracies with hundreds of departments and agencies populated by millions of employees making and issuing regulations, which are laws, without input from the people, conflicts with representative government and functions without the consent of the people. Importantly, people outside the government are to be represented by the people inside the government. How is this possible under the circumstances I just explained to you? The government today is increasingly devouring the private sector. This is why they want to get rid of capitalism and the market system and private grocery stores. That is, it is devouring the civil society. It is becoming a power unto itself, that is, the government. Here's the key. The founders and the framers believed and understood that governments are formed to protect our natural rights. That's what is positive power. Positive power. When members of the ruling class besmirch and degrade the Constitution they swore to uphold, as many of them do, for their own aggrandizement or ideological designs, they are in fact intent on diminishing, if not eradicating, the rights of the people and their consensual role in the government. That is the entire purpose of America's founding. There's no escaping this is the project mostly of the Democrat Party, their media surrogates, and like-minded ideologues in academia and entertainment. And let me emphasize, the framers themselves understood that the Constitution might need adjustment on occasion. I'm reading from On Power. And in Article 5, they provided the two processes for amending it. Now, these amendment processes intentionally involve the entire body politic and requires consent. They also require supermajorities to adopt proposed amendments. This is a far cry from members of the ruling class, whether judges, legislators, or presidents, altering the Constitution by assertion or, more likely, the manipulation, deceit, and stealth, and shrouding it in constitutional and legal language, or concealing it within the haze of bureaucratic red tape. This is a mutinous encroachment on the rights of the individual, the civil society, and the Constitution that was intended to secure and protect them. Again, I'm reading from On Power. I turn to Marxism, which, despite its various versions, provides the greatest, albeit not exclusive, threat to the American experiment. In fact, Marx directly and often denounced natural law and individual liberty, as all would-be autocrats must. For example, from the Communist Manifesto, and I'm quoting, he said, "The selfish misconceptions that induce you to transform into eternal laws of nature," he hated the declaration, "and of reason, the social forms springing from your present mode of production and form of property," capitalism, "historical relations that rise and disappear in the progress of production, the misconception you share with every ruling class that has preceded you." So what he's saying there is all history is about material and economics, and all history is lousy. And you, with your Declaration of Independence in America, you continue in a long line of lousy histories. What you see clearly in the case of ancient property, what you admit in the case of feudal property, you are, of course, forbidden to admit in the case of your own bourgeois form of property. This is Bernie Sanders. Mandami. By now, this should be familiar not only because of the earlier discussion of Marxism I write about in the book, but the earlier highlights from Woodrow Wilson's writings, where he condemned the Declaration as antiquated, and the Constitution is both antiquated and a barrier to modernity and progress. For Marx and his progeny, the current Democrat Party, the idea of individual rights is a problem. It is, he argues, intended to keep individuals as islands unto themselves, disconnected and isolated from each other. Each jealously guards his own interests, including property, sees others as adversaries and antagonists, rather than a part of a society or a social being. This produces a dehumanized and hollow man, according to Marx. Remarkable considering what we know about Marxism's unspeakable inhumanity. For the broader society, Marx contends that capitalism produces neither liberty nor equality, but inequality and self-centeredness. To be truly eliminated, he says, the individual must go through not only a political transformation, but a social revolution, that is, cutting all social bonds to religion and even family, destroying the existing society, remaking human beings, everything they have been taught, experienced, and think. After all, Marx alleges, the bourgeoisie, that is, the wealthy, control all aspects and nature of the political and social arrangements that spring from capitalism. Therefore, every bit of it must be eradicated. He writes this from the Communist Manifesto. With respect to the family, you wonder why the nuclear family is under attack? Because it's one of the key areas that need to be under attack, according to Marx in the Communist Manifesto. He said abolition of the family, even the most radical flare-up at this infamous proposal of the communists. On what foundation is the present family, the bourgeois family, based? On capital, on private gain. It is completely developed form. This family exists only among the bourgeoisie. But this state of things finds its complement in the practical absence of the family among the proletarians and in public prostitution. The bourgeois family will vanish as a matter of course when its complement vanishes, and both will vanish with the vanishing of capital. So eliminate capitalism, eliminate the relationship between parents and children, which you see going on in our public schools, backed by radical judges, backed by the Biden administration and Democrats. The bourgeois family will vanish as a matter of course. Do you charge us with wanting to stop the exploitation of children by their parents, says Marx? To this crime we plead guilty. But you say we destroy the most hallowed of relations when we replace home education by social. And your education? Is not that also social and determined by the social conditions under which you educate, by the intervention, direct or indirect, of society by means of schools? He says the communists have not invented the intervention of society in education. They do but seek to alter the character of that intervention and to rescue education from the influence of the ruling class. In this case, he means parents. The bourgeois claptrap about the family and education, about hallowed correlation of parents and children, becomes all the more disgusting, writes Marx. The more, by the action of modern industry, all the family ties among the proletarians are torn asunder, their children transformed into simple articles of commerce and instruments of labor. Now you know where the hate for the family, the nuclear family, comes from. Now you know why the effort to deconstruct it in every respect. Now you also know why transgenderism is considered a right. The power to destroy not just the government, this is from On Power, but the deep and broad roots of an entire society, faith, values, beliefs, family, friendships, other relationships, and extinguish the knowledge, learning, lifestyles, habits, and ties between fellow human beings and a human existence. Predictably requires not just a revolution, but a horrifically violent social and societal convulsion, followed by unending and unbounded acts of genocidal and psychotic tyranny. This is what you get in Marxist regimes, which eventually consumes itself. Eventually consumes itself. Indeed, not a single Marxist regime has ever or will ever shake off its despotism or despots, the supposed final stage of societal development. I explained to you that Marxism was defective in every respect from the beginning. The assumption that there can never be a middle class. You are the middle class, and you would defend this country with your lives. He never realized that till he saw America. The final stage of humanity, this paradise, or the workers' paradise where government is thrown off. There is no final stage of humanity on earth. Men evolve and devolve. There's nothing static about it. So these ideologies, I keep talking about the final stage, the workers' paradise, equity, and so forth, they're lies. This is On Power. Grab your copy at Amazon.com. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. I hope the various discussions of the book on Fox with our wonderful friends in talk radio and passages we've discussed on this program have more than intrigued you. I hope you feel that they're going to inform you in a way that you can share with your children and your grandchildren as a way to counter what's taking place in this country. We've got to explain what's taking place. And we have to make sure that we win the day. And this human fight over government and culture and society comes down to the one word, power. And I just got thinking about this over time. That's the truth. We'll be right back. How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
If you're trying to reach Mark on the air, call him at 877-381-3811. The Mark Levin Radio Show continues.
By popular demand, we're going to be posting as a separate segment on all my social media platforms my discussion about Israel, Gaza, World War II, and so forth and so on. And I hope you'll share it with as many people as you can. I think it's very, very important. A little bit of context is always helpful, I think. Yeah, a lot of context is helpful these days. Trust me. What's been taking place. I want to remind everybody, and we're very excited about this. This Saturday is only a few days away. This Saturday at 1 p.m., I'll be at Books and Greetings located at Northvale Square in Northvale, New Jersey. Now, they don't know that, but I took a little drive-by there when I was in New York. We came out to New Jersey. It's a beautiful store in a strip mall. There's plenty of parking. They do a beautiful job. There's wonderful little restaurants there. It's a very historic town, since even before the Revolutionary War and during the Revolutionary War. You're going to love this place. So it's 1 p.m. this Saturday, Books and Greetings, located in Northvale Square, Northvale, New Jersey. It's an independent, family-owned bookstore, and we always try to help that kind of a bookstore, so I hope you'll check it out. And then next Saturday, August 9th, at 10 a.m., Barnes & Noble, which is doing a great job, a brand-new Barnes & Noble, at the Spectrum at Reston Town Center in Reston, Virginia. I will be there, 10 a.m., that's August 9th, Saturday. We look forward to that. Of course, the Reagan Library is August 17th. I understand they still have openings if people want book signings, but not for the main room. So if you want to get your book signed, these are the only places you're going to get a signed book, these 3 locations. That's it. I'm more focused on what's in the book. What's in the book. And I really want you to take advantage of this book. I don't think you've ever heard me talk about a book this way. I don't think you've ever heard Sean talk about a book this way. The other wonderful folks we've talked to today. Clay and Buck were fantastic. And Paul W. Smith in the Hall of Fame is fantastic. All these folks. Jimmy in Houston. Just terrific. And I want to thank them again for allowing me on their programs. KRLA. Just a great lineup there. And by the way, Julie with Larry O'Connor. I don't want to miss anybody. And the great KRLA, they do a great job. They really do. Again, thanks to all of you. Well, President Trump, he's laid down the law to Putin in Russia. They should have the isolationists very upset, of course. They should have this pro-Putin, pro-KGB isolationists very upset. There's this Colonel... What is that guy's name? Is it MacArthur? Is it McDonald? What is that guy's name I posted on Mr. B? Do you remember? See if you can find it. This guy's such a craphead. You know, and I think this guy, at least for a short period of time, was in the administration. You know, he's pushed by the usual isolationists, the hate America first crowd. And, you know, Donald Trump really is no different than Joe Biden. It's another schmuck. Really different than Joe Biden. It's like as if we elected Joe Biden. These people are nuts. They're stupid. Stupid. Here's President Trump on Air Force One today. Cut 7. Go.
You mentioned that you would change the Russia deadline to 10 to 12 days. Has that started yet? Or when can we, see the official statement that is the new deadline?
I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you now. Do you want a big scoop?
Yes, please.
Everybody else, close your ears, okay? You ready?
I'm ready.
10 days from today.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
Good.
Have you communicated?
We have a scoop.
Thank you.
And then, we're going to put on tariffs and stuff, and I don't know if it's going to affect Russia, because he wants to obviously probably keep the war going. But we're going to put on tariffs and the various things that you put on. It may or may not affect them, but it could.
The gentleman I met yesterday was a driver. And he had a master's degree. And he was raised in communist Romania under Ceausescu. And, of course, thanks to Ronald Reagan, that government fell. He was executed along with his wife, who was even more wicked than he was. And a master's degree in our country. Very interesting gentleman. What happened was, after I did my Fox programs, and so appreciative of it, and then I did my radio show, ended 9 p.m. Eastern, I got in a car and we drove all the way back to Virginia for 5 hours, and I wound up walking into our house at about 2:40 in the morning. and I got up for an interview around 7 in the morning. And so that's how I roll when I think big things are important. And he said to me, you know, Russia is a very big country. And he said, you know, people talk about Siberia and so forth. It happens to be a very beautiful country. Rivers and streams and mountains and valleys. But the communists, they've run it for over 100 years, and Putin is effectively a communist or a fascist, whatever ist you choose. And they could turn it into a massive tourist center. With skiing during the winter and water sports during the summer and beautiful architecture and so forth and so on. He said, but look what they're doing. They're killing their own people. Because he wants to take Ukraine. Killing their own people. Just like Hamas. Just like Stalin. Hamas. Killing their own people. Beautiful country, he says. And yet, look. I had one person say to me today, correctly, but a majority of Americans aren't going to go for this Marxist Islamist stuff. It doesn't take a majority. None of these revolutions have been led by majorities. None of them. Not the Russian Revolution, not the Communist Chinese Revolution, the Third Reich, the Communist Castro guerrilla war in Cuba, Maduro in Venezuela. These aren't majoritarian movements. None of them. They're not majoritarian movements. It doesn't take a majority. It takes the power of a minority. That's the whole point. The power of a minority. And look at this guy Mondani. He got the Democrat Party nomination through a plurality, not a majority. And if he wins mayor, he's going to get it through a plurality, not a majority, because these three guys can't decide on one of them to get behind. So they'll divide the opposition. And if that happens, this guy will slip in with a plurality of the vote, not a majority, and he will use his status to destroy the city, empower himself, empower his party, his movement. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Where is the time going? This show goes so fast. In my humble opinion, keep something in mind. If you want to listen to all 3 hours of the program without preemptions or anything else, you can. We want to thank all of our wonderful affiliates and satellite radio and all the live streaming and all the rest, because we appreciate it very, very much. We always do. Our goal is to give you access to the program on every platform we can think of. But just remember, you can always search The Mark Levin Show on your favorite podcast platform if you prefer podcasts. That's The Mark Levin Show on your favorite podcast platform. We also have our own YouTube channel. Obviously, you can search Mark Levin Show in YouTube, and you'll come up with our YouTube channel. Full podcast interviews, specials, and so forth and so on. So there's always that. There's multiple ways to listen to this program. 24/7, by the way. 24/7. So the president understands who Putin is and what Putin's up to. President understands Iran, what Iran's been up to. President understands, and I'm sure he's under enormous and immense pressure, what Hamas is and what Hamas is up to. And notice the same podcasters, the same de-influencers, misinfluencers, phony narcissists, isolationists, who are coming to the defense of Hamas, for God's sakes, came to the defense of Iran against us, we the people. We the people. They're the same people. The same people. It's incredible. And more. And others. It's true. When we come back, you know, folks, I said we're going to stay away from this Epstein stuff, and we are. But the President of the United States had something to say about it that I think is worth hearing. He had something to say about it that's worth hearing. I don't think we have enough time to play Cut 16, do we, Mr. Producer? All right, let's go. Cut 16, first a reporter instigates with a question. Go.
You have said that you have not been briefed on the Epstein files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein files. But doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name is...
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey, they were run by Garland, they were run by Biden, and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the auto pen. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax. They ran the files. I was running against somebody that ran the files. If they had something, they would have released. Now, they can easily put something in the files that's a phony. Like, as an example, Christopher Steele, a person you know well, happens to be from your country. But Christopher Steele, as an example, wrote a book, a dossier. We call it the fake news dossier. And the whole thing was a fake. The whole thing was a fake. They can put things in the file that are fake. But those files were run by bad, sick people. If they had anything, why didn't they use it when I was killing Joe and then he gave out because he was 25 points down? And then I got somebody new. Nobody even knew anything about it. She was a horrible vice president.
And he's right. And notice how they can't stop asking it, including the European press. So I have a little different take on this, America. This is just how my mind works, which is to push back against the corrupt media and their ilk. The Democrats and their media keep saying that Trump in his administration is bringing up the Obama matter, the Obama involvement, and the Russia collusion scandal in order to distract from the Epstein matter. See, I see it the other way around. They keep bringing up the Epstein matter to distract from the Obama matter. There's nothing to it relating to Trump for the reasons he said and more. There's a ton to the Obama scandal related to the Russia collusion matter. So they keep bringing up Epstein to get away from Obama. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Hope you're all doing well. You know, this is very weird. I want you to listen to this, and then I want to unravel this with you. Here's Chuck Schumer. Now, Chuck Schumer won't say if he opposes or supports Mandami. Well, Schumer is a Jew, at least he claims to be. Is it really that hard for the highest-ranking Jew in the Senate to condemn Mandami? Forget about everything else. Mandami has said things that the Ku Klux Klan would say, that neo-Nazis would say, that some of the isolationists would say, that some of the commenters on my sites would say. And yet Schumer won't condemn him. He went to the floor and condemned Netanyahu. He said more harsh things about Netanyahu than he's ever said about Mandami. But I want you to listen to this. And I want to show you how this works. Cut 14, go.
Because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy. We do.
All right, so stop a second. What is he talking about? They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy. We do. What in the world? You see, this is how it works. Now, I've got a whole chapter on language. Now, what is he intending to do here? What is his purpose here? Is his purpose to have a rational discussion about policy? No. He never wants a rational discussion about policy, ever. This is what I call negative language in service to negative power. It's what Lenin called agitprop. What's agitprop? Agitprop is the use of political slogans and half-truths to exploit the grievances of certain organizations and people. In other words, it's a combination of agitation with propaganda, which I discuss in the book. Now, what's the purpose of this? Well, it's just like the Marxists. This is what they do. As I wrote, language is a tool of the state, or in this case, the Democrat Party that serves the party, takes on an official character. It's limited, prescribed, restricted. It compels certain types of speech and suppresses other forms. This kind of propaganda, Hannah Arendt was a famous philosopher. She called it totalitarian propaganda. Involves, quote, the use of indirect, veiled, and menacing hints of violence or non-believers, claims of prophecy. That's what it is. So the goal is to subvert, as I write, the civil society and the principles, values, and beliefs on which it was established, corrupt the public spirit and civic harmony. Isn't that what he's done? And reject compromise and accommodation. The people must be unmoored from and cleansed of their history, faith, and family in order to serve the state, or in this case, the Democrat Party. Positive language emphasizes the power to, whereas negative language emphasizes the power over. Positive language taps into the individual and societal benefits of communication, including persuasion and interaction, truth-seeking. The competition of ideas. It is language that is solicitous, factual, respectful, tolerant, informative, well-intentioned. The power of language is to reason and to think freely, and in the political realm to encourage debate, inquiry, deliberation, contemplation, and learning. So free speech is an essential value and precept in the application and exercise of positive power in an open society. But what is this? What is this? What kind of language is this? It is language that is intended to to silence knowledge. It's language that is intended to distort, to manipulate, which is the key word I explain, to manipulate the population. It's utterly dishonest. The power-hungry, as I write, must use negative language not only to forcibly advance their agenda, but conceal their faults and defects from the people in order to maintain their control. That's what he's doing. The Marxist regimes, China, Cuba, North Korea, Nicaragua, other forms of authoritarian rule, it is language that is used to suppress. To suppress. Now, two simple questions prove the lie of the Marxist workers' paradise. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I get into it because, again, the Democrat Party and the left in our country, this is where they're coming from. So, what Schumer just did there was intended to manipulate, to create jealousies, to create hate. And so he says, let's start at the top again, Mr. Producer, with cut 14. Go.
Because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy.
And so here we are. We've spent decades and decades through civil rights activities, through legislation, through court decisions to ensure that everybody who's supposed to vote can vote. And Schumer reaches back to this old saw. Of course, it was his party that prevented poor black people from voting, but that's beside the point. The point is, poor people are not prevented from voting. People of color are not prevented from voting. And he says that you don't believe in democracy if you don't agree with him. So this is utter manipulation. It's not intended to be informative. It's not intended to unite. It's intended to do exactly the opposite. So let's go on, Mr. Producer. Go ahead.
And so we see what they do to people everywhere. A heinous act of legislation, great ugly betrayal, taking away people's health care, taking food out of the mouths.
Nobody's taking away people's health care. Nobody's taking the food out of the mouths of hungry children. Nobody's seeking billionaire tax breaks. Nobody's preventing poor people, people of color, from voting. Nobody's preventing Democrats from voting. There's not a syllable that is spewed by this demagogue that is truthful. Again, a whole chapter on language, because it's critical. On language is intended to control thought. To control thought. You know, we're an advanced civilization. We're intelligent people, and I don't mean because people have PhDs or master's degrees or go to a four-year... I mean, we're an intelligent people. We're smart people. You're smart people. Regardless of what schools and how you went to school, I don't care. You're smart people. Does this sound smart to you? And this is what they do. They did it in the last election cycle and the one before. These are the tactics and the techniques of the Marxists and the fascists. There's nothing in here that can be debated. You can deny it, of course. It's a lie. It's a series of lies. There's nothing to debate. But if you really wanted to debate government programs involving health care, government programs involving food stamps or what have you, if he really wanted to debate these issues, he wouldn't pose them this way. But he doesn't want to debate. He doesn't want to inform. He wants to manipulate. Go ahead.
Children to get billionaires a tax break? Shame on them. I can't believe it. No principle, no conscience. Shame. 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 Shame.
Now, I also explain in the book sloganeering. The endless sloganeering. Shame, shame, tax cuts for billion. Sloganeering. Sloganeering is for imbeciles, and they treat people as imbeciles. That's what they do. Sloganeering. What else did you hear that? Shame, 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 shame. Repetition is a tool of negative power. Repetition. Now, repetition could be good. You know, you want to be a dancer, great golfer, great athlete, singer. You repeat, you repeat, you repeat. That's okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the demagogic effort at repetition for thought control. Thought control. Not you controlling your own mindset when you address a ball, when you're golfing, or when you're trying to dive out of a pool and you're in competitive diving. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about trying to control the way you think. So you have the sloganeering, you have the repetition. That's why I'm playing this. You have the manipulation. This is Schumer. This is the Democrats. These are the Marxists. These are the Islamists. Go ahead.
When American people are angry, and it's righteous anger, they have made it harder to vote throughout the decades.
Who has made it harder to vote throughout the decades? What, to show the voter ID? That's hard to do? I mean, it's amazing. The government they want requires IDs for everything. You need an ID, a special ID, to get on an airplane. Is that racist? Is that to prevent people from getting on airplanes? No. It's to prevent the wrong people from getting on airplanes, just like a voter ID is to prevent the wrong people from voting. People aren't legitimately voting. So, again, what's the point here? Manipulation. Not honesty, not debate. Manipulation. This is like the perfect clip for this. Go ahead.
Republican Party, now accentuated by the awful MAGA group, they are doing all of this stuff.
They're doing all this stuff. They're doing none of this stuff. There's 77 million of you. You're not a group. You're 77 million of Americans. You're not a group. Like you're some faction or some radical offshoot. You're 77 million Americans with all different backgrounds and experiences who voted for Donald Trump. So you're to be diminished. So if you don't buy the sloganeering, if you don't buy the repetition, if you don't buy the outright lies, there's something wrong with you. So I want to thank Chuck Schumer. Yeah, exactly. In 55 seconds. Effectively proves the point. But this issue about language control and wokeism, this is a tool of totalitarians to prevent free thinking, real reasoning, which is what your brain is for, to prevent it. Just to make you think, good guy, bad guy. He doesn't want black people or brown people or yellow people to vote. He's trying to take food from little kids. He's trying to take healthcare away from seniors. He over there. That's all. There's nothing intelligent about it. It is a technique. It is a technique. That's what it is. Which is why I spend chapter 4 time really delving into what they do. And this is, again, what a Mao would do, or Stalin would do, or Mandani would do. It's what the Democrats do. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I have a question for the phonies, frauds, the de-influencers, misinfluencers. Very much focused on Israel. They ever heard of the Uyghurs? Have you noticed that the Prime Minister of Britain never talks about the Uyghurs? Have you noticed that the President of France never talks about the Uyghurs? Have you noticed the United Nations never talks about the Uyghurs? Have you noticed the reporters at the Slimes and the Compost and reporters all over Britain in the West never talk about the Uyghurs. Have you noticed that the podcasters never talk about the Uyghurs? Have you noticed that? Genocide Watch, Chinese genocide of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang continues. 12 million people, the majority of whom are Uyghur Muslims, live in Xinjiang, China, officially known as the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region by the Communist Chinese. The Communist Chinese Party, you notice it's the Communist Chinese Party, not Communist China. Just like it's the Democrat Party, not America, because the party comes first. It's intent on colonizing Xinjiang and replacing Uyghur Muslims with Han Chinese communism. Due to implementation of the big development of the Northwest Plan, millions of Han Chinese have been resettled in Xinjiang since the early 1990s. The Communist Party has held millions of Uyghurs in huge re-education prisons. Han Chinese monitors are forcibly placed in Uyghur families. These assimilationist policies are designed to stop independent movements by Uyghurs. Chinese officials claim the program is to defeat terrorism. China tries to justify its repression as a fight against religious extremism. The Communist Chinese Party has severely restricted movement in Xinjiang. The entire region is under constant video camera, audio surveillance. They collect personal biometric data, including fingerprints, facial recognition data, iris scans, and DNA samples. Gee, sounds like a lot worse than voter ID, Mr. Producer. It's begun to use AI. Hundreds of thousands of police files document movements and conversations of the ethnic language population. Since 2017, between 800,000 and 2 million Uyghurs have been held in Xinjiang concentration camps, commonly referred to as re-education camps. They're forced to participate in Communist Party indoctrination programs, which detainees are forced to abandon their Muslim faith and culture. The Communist Chinese Party forbids use of Uyghur language, imposes Mandarin Chinese within these camps. Inside the camps, Chinese Communist Party officials subject Uyghurs to physical beatings, sexual assault, gang rapes of women, forced abortion, sexual torture, mass rape, and murder. The Communist Party forcibly removes Uyghur children from their homes and places them in residence at schools that are forbidden to speak the language, violation of the Genocide Convention, Article 2E. After re-education, the Uyghurs are forced to work harvesting cotton, in other words, forced labor, slave labor. And many of them are disappeared, as they say. I haven't heard anybody talk about this. None of the great de-influencers and misinfluencers. I haven't heard any of the great Western powers talk about this. Have you, America? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, tough as hell.
That's why I like Mark Levin. And I'm not sure a lot of people like him. He's tough as hell. But I like him. I love him.
Call in now. 877-381-3811.
That be the man right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's take some calls here. I think I've been good at this lately. Yes, I have. All right, I'm trying, Mr. Producer. Hold on. The calls just came in. Stick with me, folks. We got full boards here. Let us go to Roy in Oregon, XM Satellite. Roy, how are you?
I am outstandingly wonderful because I have Mark Levin on my phone and also on my radio.
Thank you, my brother.
Mark, you are the breath of fresh air that the United States of America needs today.
Well, that's awfully nice of you. Why is that?
2 years ago, I called and talked with you when Democrats Hate America came out.
Mm-hmm.
Power is the sequel to that book.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, Roy, you're very kind. I'm going to send you a signed copy, and after this week, I'm going to have to stop because I'm running out of books to hand out, right, Mr. Producer? So don't hang up, Roy. publisher says, what are you doing? Handing out some, well, I guess I'm a Jewish Santa Claus. Is that possible, Rich? I don't know. So, Roy, don't hang up. We'll get your full name and address. Love to send it to you. Hanukkah Harry. Stephen, Pickens, South Carolina, XM Satellite. Stephen, how are you?
All right, I'm on WORD, but what I want to talk to you about, I've been listening to your show recently. I'm a new listener, and I heard you talking about the branches of our government and, you know, the fraud, embezzlement, the racketeering, you know, and manipulation, intimidation, and stuff like that, and the falsehoods and lies, you know, and that's all pointing back to our city and our government and our city and county administrations, you know, with their fees and their raises and for their rules and regulations and whatnot. And I'm wondering, you know, people are getting tired of this. You know, I lived in Baltimore, Maryland when I was a child. I've lived in South Carolina now. I've seen the North, the South. I've sat with the elders of the church. You know, I even went to prison for protecting myself because I was called a Yankee when I come down here in the South and was attacked. You know, and I had to defend myself. But I'm looking at all this going on and the chaos in the world. You know, the Bible does teach behavior management, character structure. You know, a lot of these politicians and stuff, they need some sound mind and discretion. And I think you're a man with that sound mind and discretion. You know, I have discernment, you know, and I talk to these people out here on the road and the streets about what's going on. I'm a realistic. I worked construction all my life. I built roads, highways, houses, did utilities, you know, to build the communities in the neighborhood. And then I had social injustices, you know, and been falsely accused or wrongly accused or, you know, and all this stuff on here. But I wanted to come out with this. My point was I wanted to share with the part about behavior, manner, character, structure. Through virtues, morals, and values. Put away the liquor bottles and, you know, the alcohol guys and get with what God's really trying to teach you about humanity.
All right. You've made your point beautifully. Beautifully. Thank you, Stephen. Don't hang up. We want to send you a signed copy of the book. Thank you, my friend. Sean, Cartersville, Georgia, on the Mark Levin app. Sean, how are you?
Great, Mark. I'm really glad I finally get to talk to you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make it quick. I wanted to tell you that I appreciate your stance on things, that you don't waver like these other people. I mean, I grew up listening to Rush, and, you know.
I feel pretty damn certain Rush and I would be standing shoulder to shoulder. I really do. He was one of my best friends. I knew him inside and out, his belief systems and so forth. He loved Netanyahu, loved the state of Israel, loved the United States of America and the military. He was no way an isolationist. He was no way, you know, a quasi-socialist like some of these phonies are. He'd be standing right with me and I with him.
Definitely. And you're 100% right on your take on these podcasters. They literally just interview themselves over and over and just repeat the same repetitive
What
things.
is that all about? I don't get it. What is that all about?
I don't either. It's really boring, and they're kind of getting like the Democrats. I mean, they'll say one thing, and they'll accuse you of something when they're the actual ones.
You know, that is a great point. As a matter of fact, the more I read about these guys, because I don't listen to them, but there are people that have clips of them all over the more they are like Democrats. The more they're just like your garden variety liberals. They sound just like them. In fact, some of them actually sound worse, like Bernie Sanders. If you didn't know who it was, you'd say, wait a minute, Bernie Sanders is putting down my country? Wait a minute, Bernie Sanders is siding with Hitler against Churchill? Wait a minute, Hamas isn't starving the people? Israel's starving the people? Wait a minute. It'll be World War III if we take their... Who do they sound like? They sound like the left.
You're 100% right. I've seen so many videos of the UN aid in Gaza where they're trying to get the food to the people in Gaza, and they can't get it to them. And it's not Israel that's holding it back. You know, it's not anybody else. It's themselves.
Mm-hmm. And why is it so hard to believe that Hamas is killing its own people? They're a terrorist organization. They've been doing this from day one, hiding in hospitals and mosques and schools and all the rest of it. And Stalin did it, and Mao did it, and Lenin did it, and on and on and on. So why is it so hard to believe that these radical Islamist terrorists aren't killing their own people? Because that's exactly what they're doing.
Definitely.
I'll tell you what, man, you're great. Don't hang up, Sean. We're going to send you. It was Sean, right, Rich? We're going to send you a signed copy of On Power as well. All right, let's slip in one more. Rancho Cucamonga. I've always liked saying that. Rancho Cucamonga, California. Michael in its XM satellite. How are you, Michael?
Very good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm all right. Say Cucamonga fast 12 times. No, don't.
You sound always encouraging and empowering. However, I talked to a lot of people, and we all have freedom of speech, but like what Chuck Schumer was saying, it's obvious these are lies. Okay, like you take, for instance, like The View. They spew lies as well. Freedom of speech is one thing, but I wanted your opinion on, because you're a law professor and you know a lot about law, but what is that part of it? In other words, does the Constitution...
Yeah, that is free speech, and we have the free speech ability to counter it. But these people obviously are using free speech to destroy a free nation. That's why they lie the way they do. That's why they manipulate. That's the word, manipulate. Manipulate, thought control. They do not want to discuss the issues in a substantive way. They never will. And they come up with these slogans and this propaganda, and this is what they do, and it's up to us to counter it. But I just want people to understand their purpose. Their purpose is to destroy unity, that is disunity. Their purpose is to use freedom of speech as a weapon, as a tool for manipulation and coercion. They want uniformity. They want people scared. They want people at each other's throats. But you raise a very interesting issue, Michael, which is we've never quite figured out, and I've mentioned this many times in my career, the following puzzle. Liberty allows the opponents of liberty to destroy liberty. And a free people we haven't really quite figured out how to deal with this. That is, a free society, in addition to all the wonderful things, it allows evil people, manipulators, people who are power hungry, to take advantage of the freedom for themselves and against the rest of us. It is a conundrum, I say to my friend in Rancho Cucamonga. Don't hang up, Michael. We're going to send you a signed copy of On Power. I hope you enjoy it, my friend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, let's go to Walt, Silver Spring, Maryland, the great WMAL. Walt, how are you, sir?
I'm really good, Mark. Happy to call in. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you.
You were talking about Marx earlier tonight. You mentioned Hannah Arendt. I studied her in grad school. I have her on my Kindle, The Origins of Totalitarian. I really appreciate you talk about these things. It's important.
Well, thank you.
And, your new book is coming out. I'm really excited about that, On Power. And I just want to end your show on a high note, Mark. I'm from Philadelphia originally, born and raised. I moved to Maryland a while ago, but we're going to be really happy about our Eagles this year, I'm telling you.
Well, I don't want to upset the rest of the country, but they actually got better. So I agree. They're going to be a tough team, I don't want to jinx them. There's a lot of great teams out there. I think Detroit, if it's healthy, is going to be a tough team. Buffalo's always tough. I think Baltimore, if they really play to their potential, I think Washington's going to be a good team. But I think the Eagles are very, very strong. And I checked with my buddy, who's the expert on all things sports, Stephen A. He said, I'm with you, Mark. They look like the best. So we'll see what happens. But don't hang up, Walt. I'm going to send you a signed copy of On Power. Thank you, sir. I love to introduce these great thinkers and scholars and philosophers to millions and millions of you. These people should not have passed unnoticed. They make a difference. They have things to say. And I try to say things that are unique and different, using this platform and the TV platforms and the digital platforms. I know it's very unique talk radio, but it is what it is. I think it's very, very important. Let's go to Gary in, where is that? Arkansas? XM Satellite? Go right ahead.
Yep, Bald Knob, Arkansas. Hey, Mark, I just want to let you know, man, I listen to you every night. I'm a trucker. You've done some things for me that you never even realized. I mean, the Democrat Party hates America. You sent me 2 signed books.
Well, it's because I like it. Now, don't hang up. I'm going to send you a signed copy of On Power. See the effect we have across the country, America. Isn't it fabulous? I love you, folks. I'll see you tomorrow. Grab your copy of On Power. Amazon.com. See you tomorrow.